Hope you like bagels. Because the Sceptres gave us another one. Losing 3-0 to the Montreal Victoire. And the last game before the Olympic break. I would like to do this video in 3 parts. I want to look at the leadership group on the ice. I want to look at the coaching. I want to look at the management. First, in the game, first period comes out already looking a little bit rocky. 12 minutes in, Renata Fast takes a holding penalty. Puts Toronto on the penalty kill. On the penalty kill, Monroe takes a cross-checking penalty. So now they're down 5-on-3. And what do you notice about both of those players? Both of them are penalty killers. Both of them are assistant captains. Toronto somehow manages to kill off the 5-on-3, but then with 3.5 minutes left in the period, Natalie Malinkova takes advantage of a bouncing puck out front of the net that Kirk doesn't quite have a bead on and buries it. Going to the intermission 1-0. Not ideal, not insurmountable. Monroe takes a delay of game penalty. Poulin would score off a rebound on that power play. 2 minutes after that, almost to the second, Renata Fast takes an interference penalty. D'Arcangelo would score in the ensuing power play there. Every period subsequently just got worse, and it wasn't a great start to begin with. And now they have lost 8 of their last 10, 7 of which were in regulation. Toronto is 1-1-1-7 in their last 10 games. And I want to look at, first of all, the on-ice leadership. And by that I mean Fast and Monroe. Because I think Turnbull is the heart of the team. She might not have the flashiest play style. She might not have the biggest numbers. Apparently she leads the team or the league in hits, if I heard the broadcast correctly. She is a consistent playmaking threat, solid two-way player, an active leader, an aggressive one. She's everything you could want in a captain. Fast has no self-control whatsoever. She has lost the Sceptres 1 game definitively this season, Halifax, when she took the penalty that waved off Maltese breakaway goal in overtime that she didn't need to take. And this game, the holding penalty she took in the first, she didn't need to take. The interference penalty she took in the second, she didn't need to take. And she needs to understand that about herself, that she's a leader on the team. She needs to lead by a bit of an example. Aggression is good, stupidity is not. And when you're a penalty killer, you need to stay out of the freaking box! But they're not even smart or vaguely reasonable things to be taking penalties on. They're not immediate threats. They're not over-aggression in a big scrum or something. They're not avenging one of your teammates. They're away from the play half the time. She just bowls people over and then is shocked when she gets put in the sin bin. It's insane. It's ridiculous. And I'm sure she has a powerful voice in the locker room. I don't doubt that. I'm sure a lot of other people on the team do too. You can't be doing the things she's doing. You can't be that dumb. Especially when the team is playing as bad as they have been. That's not injecting life. That's being pissed off, and rightfully so. You should be pissed off, and I like to see that she's pissed off. They should be. The entire bench should be. Grabbing onto people at center ice when they're going up for a rush, or just, cross-checking people over at the circle when the puck is in the corner. That's just moronic. That's plain idiocy. You don't need to do that. That's a complete lack of self-control. That's not leadership. That's not an example. That's not anything. All you're doing is putting your team in a hole. Same goes for Monroe this game. Monroe, I'll give a bit more slack because, no one ever means to put the puck over the glass. Nobody does. That's never on purpose. When you're playing on a penalty kill already, you need to be a fragment more careful. And going into the boards against your opponent with the shaft of your stick against their tailbone isn't really the way to go, I don't think. And Monroe avenges people a lot. Someone gets hit on the Sceptres, Monroe is the first person in there backing them up if she's on the ice. Every time. And I love to see that from her. But again, it's the same thing with Fast to a slightly lesser degree, but the same thing. You need more self-control. She got a roughing penalty in, was it the Hamilton game? Was it the Battle on Bay? It was one of those. Where a play happened and she came back and cross-checked someone in the face. You can't, I understand you want to be in front of your team. I understand that there's a role you're trying to fulfill. You're trying to protect the players that share your jersey. That's not the way to do it. Simply not. I don't see, but that's hard to understand. And I don't see how they're not learning these lessons because they do them all the time. It's game in and game out, day after day after day. They do the same things. And it leads to the same results, them getting a penalty. Now Toronto's killing one, and they're killing it without one of their penalty killers, which is never ideal. Coaching. I have not been subtle, necessarily, about my opinions on Troy Ryan. He has no idea what he's doing. I have never seen a more obvious example of a coach that has no answers whatsoever and isn't even really trying to find one. He's just mixing up the lines every single game to try and get something going. And every game, it's failing. Every single one. He can't do anything. And he very clearly has his favorites. And he has the players that he's trying to make work. The thing that confuses me when I see the lines get shuffled every single game is that the players are often in different positions. Malte was a center for the first quarter of the season. Now Comfort's a center. She was a winger at the beginning of the season. He's making all these weird adjustments, and it's not working. He doesn't play his full lineup. I've explained that before. He barely ever plays DeGeorge or whoever his 13th is, unless he's truly at a loss. It's not just this season that this has happened. There's a history of it. Someone pointed out on social media, I was looking during one of the intermissions, it seems like a lot of players have just simply worse seasons in Toronto than they do elsewhere. Shelton hasn't really lived up to what we expected her to be. Partially because of the pairing with Fast. Maybe we know Fast Harmon works. She could go somewhere else, but she hasn't been. Maybe she just doesn't fit somewhere. You don't really want to split up Monroe and Flanagan. Maybe put her with Shelbin. Well, now she's on the third line. You're going to have that big of a name player on your third D line? So there's that. Get into a bit more of that later. Willoughby has had a better time with Montreal than she ever did in Toronto. Skamura is having a better time in Montreal than she did in Toronto. Even going back to last season, Bach looked better in Ottawa than she did in Toronto, and that's partially because she was scratched half the games she was in Toronto. Does he not have a system? He once joked a couple of games ago in a post-game that Toronto's power play was not working at all. So he let the players drop the play. Which is a concession from him. What I'm doing isn't working. You guys figure it out. And then it's also saying, well, now if it doesn't work, it's not my fault. Right? Now this can't be brought back to me. And guess what? The power play line that scored that night was the one the players made up. Was the one that Turnbull drew up. Seems like maybe your systems aren't that good, Troy. He said something in a couple of post games that has made me so furious. In that the constant narrative around the Sceptres this entire season has been, why can't you score? Which is a fair question. Most games, they only score one goal. The most they've scored on a goalie is 4. The most they've scored in a game is 4. Most of their wins are 2-1 wins. 3-2 win here and there. And then the games they lose, they get blown out of the water. 5-0, 6-4, 3-0. And they ask him about that in the post-game. And Troy Ryan says, well, we don't have a whole lot of natural scoring talent on the roster. You have Daryl Watts, who's a natural goal scorer. That's really it. These are things he said to the media out loud in person. And first of all, can't imagine that's great for the morale of your locker room. You know, the players see that, oh, my coach doesn't believe in me. Coach thinks I can't score. Oh no. I'm power forward. I guess I'm dead weight if I'm not putting in goals. Which clearly coach thinks I can't do. That's not a great feeling. But also, that's what the coaching is for! You're meant to put the players in positions to succeed! What, do you think every single person on your roster is gonna be a pure goal scorer? You think you're gonna have a top line made up of like 30 goal scorers? No! Not how that works! You're meant to craft plays and make lines and form synergies so that the players can work together to score. And by the way, even when Troy Ryan does have the dream team, because he coaches the national team as well, remember, he's coaching them going into Milan. Aren't we all excited about that? He coaches Canada's national team when he has the best talent that Canada can offer. Do you remember the rivalry series? They got eviscerated! They got destroyed! And like, half that roster is natural goal-scoring talent. Presumably, anyway. You can't pin it on that. Yeah, is it not necessarily ideal? Maybe not. To only have, because I don't necessarily disagree. Watts is the big name goal scorer on the team, yeah. Is everyone else incapable? No one else can get a shot away? No one else knows how to elevate the puck off this? People can shoot, Troy! That's what your job is! Like, you're just throwing them out there on the ice and seeing that all their talent will take over. I do not want him to have a job by the end of the season. Hell, I think if the Olympics go bad, they should axe him before they come back. It's so obvious to myself and to many, many, many viewers and fans of this team that this dude has lost the room. And even by some miraculous chance he hasn't, he's not doing himself any favors every time he talks to the media and basically saying, yeah, our team isn't good, except for Watts. What are you doing? What is your practice? You just skate around? It's like a free skate at your community center on a Saturday afternoon? What is your job? So that's my thoughts on coaching. Management. Much the same in the way that Troy Ryan is the coach of the national team. Gina Kingsbury is the general manager of Kinnard's national team. And this is where things get a little bit muddy. Gina Kingsbury's decision-making does not inspire confidence. When Canada's Olympic roster was announced this year, everyone looked at it and said that's a silver medal roster. Basically the same roster they had for the rivalry series, which, as I just mentioned, they got obliterated in. Gina Kingsbury was explaining it was a tough process, but they wanted to do right by players and do right by some veterans that had been there before, get the leadership, get the experience in. Canada has no NCAA players on their national roster. The roster's just kind of old. By pro sporting standards, the roster's just kind of old. And I look at Kingsbury's decision-making with the Sceptres, especially with this draft. Toronto's big trade at the draft, one of them, was they traded their first-round draft pick for Ella Shelton to New York. Ella Shelton was good in New York. I'm not going to say that she wasn't. If I'm not mistaken, she was on their top defensive line. If not, definitely their second. Toronto didn't need Ella Shelton at all. Toronto lost one defender in the expansion draft. They lost something like 9 or 10 players. One of them was a defender, and it was Megan Carter. That's your third pairing D. Shelton is a top 2 D. Top 3 maybe. You had Fast Harmon, which was working good. You had Monroe Flanagan, which was working good. And you just needed a pair for Shelvin, which you can draft. Or you can call up Condis. She's in your system. You can claim Knowles from New York. You've had her before. You have options, right? But they traded their first to New York for Shelton. And Shelton has been less than impressive in Toronto. And the pick they traded away was used to draft Casey O'Brien. And Casey O'Brien has been great for New York. She's been excellent. By all accounts, the Sirens love playing her. The fans love watching her. Great rookie. And when Toronto lost like half their forward group between expansion and free agency, you could use some forwards. You don't need another top 2, top 3 D. It's not necessary. And now you look at their lineup and it's all screwed up in their defensive core because they have like 5 top 3 defenders. And it's just hard to shuffle. It's hard to fit people in places that make sense. Because it doesn't make sense. Quite frankly, I would love to see them trade one of those players for like a middle 6 forward. That'd be great. And looking at the forwards that Toronto did draft and did trade for, Dalton has been getting solid minutes. DeGeorge has been getting basically no minutes. Some nights, literally no minutes. That's free agency. From the draft, Gentry looked pretty decent to start. She's been fine. Zanin, I've enjoyed watching. I think she's been one of their better new players, their better new rookies, one of their better players in general, to be honest. Van Wieren has looked solid in the role that she's in. Third, fourth liner. She's looked good. Hjalmarsson, draftee, but not really a rookie. She's played a few years in Sweden. She's been about the same as Van Wieren. Been pretty solid, pretty fine. It'd be nice if you had something more than fine. Right? Why would you go out and get another, like, 2-way defender? You needed a forward! And what worries me about Gina Kingsbury is that she likes to do right by players, which I respect to an extent. And she likes to do right by her people, which I respect to an extent. She and Troy Ryan have worked together for a long, long, long time. So I don't know if she's going to be able to let him go. But he needs to. Some of the players that she's worked with for a long time on national teams and whatnot. It would be good to trade some of them. Some players that might have been there for a little while they still have good trade value, right? And I don't know if she's going to be willing to do that. I don't know if she's going to be handcuffed by personally knowing the person. And yes, it sucks that in pro sports, people with lives are largely treated as, like, kind of assets. It's, not ideal, but it's pro sports. That's the business. If you're going to be an athlete, that's what you signed up for. So my confidence is shaky on the management front. And I hope that she's able to identify what the team needs. Because right now, they've had like 3, maybe 4 good forwards, right? 5 on a good day. And your goalies, I'll give you credit, have been good. I think trading away Campbell was the right move. Kirk has been great. Chuli has been good for you as well. But the personnel of this organization in important positions, in leadership positions, in influential positions, I am not impressed by. I have very little confidence in. And I'm not happy with. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want more. Ship sinking.